Welcome to Data Talk, presented by IDEA Data and Research. DATA stands for Data Analysis Techniques Applied. Data Talk is a series of videos for Arkansas's local education agencies on the use of data, particularly for special education staff. The series will cover the basic concepts of data, including understanding data sources, context of the data, analytical techniques, and the reporting of IDEA data. In this episode, we are going to discuss significant disproportionality in the requirement to implement comprehensive, coordinated early intervening services, also known as CCEIS. If your district has been identified as having significant disproportionality in one or more of the 98 possibilities, they are now required to set aside funds and provide comprehensive, coordinated early intervening services. CCEIS was established to reduce referrals and placement of students in special education and related service programs. The Division of Elementary and Secondary Education's Office of Special Education, abbreviated as DESE-OSE, in mid-December each year notifies districts if they have been identified as having significant disproportionality in one or more of the 98 possibilities, and are required to set aside funds and provide CCEIS the following school year. Federal and state significant disproportionality requirements are very specific. If an LEA is identified as having significant disproportionality, they must complete the state CCEIS tool and application and plan. Set aside 15% of IDEA allocation for the implementation of CCEIS. The 15% is calculated on the combined total of 611 and 619. That is school age and early childhood federal allocations. Further, because a district is identified, they cannot take a reduction in the maintenance of effort requirement, and they cannot reallocate these funds. Failure to expend all funds requires a repayment of federal funds with local funds. Continuing with the requirements, LEAs must implement CCEIS for students ages 3 to 21. IDEA specifically mentions grades K-4. However, the regulations revised in 2016 and implemented in 2018 allows for pre-K through grade 12 or ages 3 to 21. The actual age or grade groups to be served will be selected by the district. Students with and without disabilities can be served under CCEIS. Arkansas determined that no more than 50% of students served under CCEIS can be a student with an IEP. Being required to implement CCEIS also means you must track the students and the services they receive through the use of the required 15% set aside. Basic rules for tracking students served under CCEIS include: the tracking of students must occur in eSchool. To enter both students with and without disabilities into the CEIS module in eSchool, the district must flag themselves as a required CCEIS district. The flag is called disproportionality and is located on the district demographics screen. Special education directors will need to ask the district's eSchool administrator to mark the field. If this field is not marked, you will not be able to enter students with IEPs into the CEIS module. As mentioned previously, tracking students is done in eSchool. Having the student information in eSchool is a requirement. Failure to maintain eSchool throughout the year could result in a noncompliance finding for failing to maintain and/or report data as required. Failure to report may also affect your APR, or Annual Performance Report, and RDA, Results-Driven Accountability Determination, as part of timely and accurate reporting. All required data must be submitted in Cycle 7. Now let us discuss the data entry screens. There are two screens in eSchool which are required. They are located under registration in this center column. Screen 1 is the Coordinated Early Intervening General Information screen. Screen 2 is the Coordinated Early Intervening Service Types screen. Both screens are required. To complete the Coordinated Early Intervening General Information screen, first, locate the student in eSchool. Second, from the registration menu, select the General Information screen. This is the screen where you will enroll the student into the CCEIS program. The fields include entry withdrawal, date of birth, which should populate from demographics, gender, which populates from demographics also. State ID should populate if it is available. ELL status should also populate if available. Resident LEA is the home district. This could be different from the reporting district if the student is under school choice or attends a private school. Continuing with the data entry screens. Third, click on the Not Assigned link next to the entry withdrawal field. A new screen will open and you will need to fill in the following fields. Under Value, select AA. Enter the start date. This is the date the student was placed to receive CCEIS. A start reason is not needed. Click Save. If a student is active in the school age module and the disproportionality flag is not marked on the District Defined screen, you will receive the following message. The student is active in the special education program and may not be placed in Coordinated Early Intervening Services. You must mark the field on the District Defined screen to clear this error. Continuing with the data entry screens, once you have saved the entry withdrawal screen, the Not Assigned will change to an A. Now fourth, you must enter the remaining fields if applicable. Fields with asterisks next to them are required. As previously noted, some fields will populate from the demographic or personal screen. You will need to enter the resident LEA 7-digit number. This is usually your LEA number unless the student is school choice or private school. This is the one instance that we allow a charter school to be listed as the resident LEA. Now let's take a look at the Coordinated Early Intervening Service Type screen. This is where you will enter the services the student is receiving under CCEIS. Students can have multiple services. There are three main fields: service type, begin date, and end date. The other service field is only applicable if you select OS, S2, or S3 as the service type. A list of services are shown on the right of the slide. There are three other service options. They are highlighted with an arrow. When selected, the district must provide a description of the service. If a student is on a 504 plan and receiving CCEIS, please indicate 504 as a service for tracking purposes. In this example of a service screen, this student began receiving language skills on 11/2/2022. The district also selected to have a behavior evaluation conducted. The evaluation was completed on 11/9/2022, so they withdrew the student from that service. 2 days later, as a result of the behavior evaluation, the student began receiving counseling behavior intervention services. Exiting students from CCEIS. When a student is no longer going to receive CCEIS, they must be exited from their services and the program, as illustrated in the picture on the slide. Every service should have an end date entered if the student is no longer going to receive CCEIS. After entering the service end dates, you still must exit the student from the program using one of the allowable codes. Continuing with exiting students from CCEIS. Once the services are marked as ended, the student should be withdrawn from the program from the General Information screen by selecting Entry Withdrawal. You must enter an end date and an end reason for the student to become inactive. Although the student is inactive, this general information screen will not show an I for inactive. Instead, it will read not assigned. However, to conduct a search of closed records, search using the status of I. The list of program exit reasons are on the right, and they are highlighted with a red box around them. Only codes from the program withdrawal list with CEIS in parentheses behind the code are valid. While most codes are self-explanatory, there are a few which may need further explanation. CD. A student with an IEP who was receiving CCEIS is dismissed from CCEIS, but the IEP is still active. RP. Reached program eligibility is dependent on individual district programs. If your program is serving students in PK2 and a student is moving to grade 3, the student would be dismissed as reaching program eligibility. If a program is ending, you would also use RP. SP. A student that was receiving CCEIS and did not have an IEP was referred and placed for special education, and the team decides to discontinue CCEIS. Let's continue discussing exiting students from CCEIS. If a student will continue receiving CCEIS in the next school year, there is no reason to withdraw them from services or the program. If a district is required to continue the provision of CCEIS, the only students that need to be withdrawn from services and program are those not returning. If a required district is not flagged for CCEIS for the next school year, but has carryover funds, the provision of CCEIS is still required. Funds cannot be reallocated and students must be tracked and reported. If a district is not required to provide CCEIS in the next school year and they have zero carryover funds from the current year, all students should have their services closed and withdrawn from the program on the general information screen using RP for the reason. What to do if you are no longer a required district? First, make sure you have exited all students from the CCEIS module. That includes their services. Then, remove the disproportionality flag from the District Define screen. You may also want to determine if you want to provide CEIS voluntarily. Districts who voluntarily provide CEIS can provide services to non-IEP students in grades K-12. They must track all students served in the CEIS module in eSchool. They can budget up to the 15% of new allocation, but are not required to budget the entire 15%. Additionally, these funds can be reallocated if needed. Cycle 7 reporting of CCEIS, CEIS. All students served under required CCEIS or voluntary CEIS during the school year are part of Cycle 7. Any student who was active in the module any time in the year is reported. Cycle 7 review in September includes CCEIS and CEIS students and services. Failure to maintain eSchool and report in Cycle 7 can impact the timely and accurate components of the LEA Special Education Annual Performance Report and the results-driven accountability determination. Thank you for viewing this episode of Data Talk. We hope you have found it to be helpful and will join us for upcoming Data Talk episodes. Our contact information is IDEA Data and Research, University of Arkansas at Little Rock, 2801 South University Avenue. Stabler Hall 406, Little Rock, Arkansas 72204. Our phone number is 501-916-3219. Our fax number is 501-916-3238. If you have questions, you can contact Dr. Jody Fields at jafields@ualr.edu.